right. We are live. Hi, everyone. Well, hello and welcome, everyone, to our fourth live stream for the Empowerment Podium. For those of you who are returning, I want to welcome you back. And for those of you that are new here, welcome. I also want to wish everyone a happy new year. I know that one of my resolutions this year is to continue to build this community of empowered individuals through storytelling. So thank you for helping me to do that by being here. I'm so glad that you guys are joining us today. And I hope that you'll come away from this talk a little bit more knowledgeable and empowered than you were before. Just for a little bit of housekeeping, as today's storyteller is telling her story, please feel free to submit any questions that you have in the chat, and we'll be going through those during the Q&A to follow our story. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to bring up Christy and introduce her. I would like to present today's speaker, Kristy Bacon. Christy is a 24-year and counting burn survivor, and she holds a bachelor's degree in criminal justice as well as a culinary arts degree. She is also the founder of S.C.A.R.S Unite Inc, a nonprofit organization that seeks to unite burn survivors for the purpose of empowerment. So, without further ado, I'm going to hand it off to Christy.
Thank you so much. I just really, first and foremost, would like to thank the Empowerment Podium for giving me this platform to share my story. I also want to thank all of those who are able to tune in. This is my first time being able to just go live and actually share my story with someone. So I hope that those who are watching, you will be able to just at least take something from it and maybe share it with someone else. Um, I came from a very large family, born and raised in a very small, intimate town. Um, I lived amongst family, so I grew up with cousins, and I had enough siblings though that they really kept me occupied. I My parents, my mother had one child entering the marriage, and my father had three, and together they had four children. My mom actually had a set of twins before having me, and we had my baby brother. January 15th, 1998. I remember the night before getting ready to go to school the next day, so I thought. My father, he always, around this time of the year, we would have a fire burning in the house. It was like a furnace, not so much as a fireplace, but like a furnace that he would actually, light to heat the house. On this particular night, he attempted to put the firewood into the furnace and start a fire. Well, unfortunately, when he tried, the fire wouldn't ignite. There was just a little bit of smoke that actually came from the wood. And needless to say, he wasn't able to start the fire. Um, we all ended up going to bed and covering up and just trying our best to keep warm that way. Um, Around, I don't know if this had to have been about 12, 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, I remember waking up to flames everywhere. I don't even recall anyone coming to me to tell me to get up, but I remember just waking up out of my sleep and noticing that literally the roof where I was just on fire. I remember coming out of the hallway, and the actual walkway that I would have used to exit into the living room, the flames were just, I mean, I was like 4 foot something, and it was just coming down the sides of the doorway. And the only way that I could think to escape was I threw my hands up. I remember doing that to cover my face, to protect my face. So I thought, to try to exit into the living room. And I just remember fumbling around. I was trying to get out, but as a child, I'm thinking, okay, maybe if I got water, I could help put the fire out. So I remember going to the kitchen sink and touching the knobs to try to turn the water on, and the water wouldn't come out. And I remember touching the faucet, and it singed my hands because by that time, the flames had just, I mean, just overtaken the whole entire house. So I remember going to the back door and I tried to open up the back door, the doorknob. It was, I mean, just it burned my hands. It was so hot. And I remember trying to pull to open the door and I couldn't get the door open. Little did I know my father was on the other side of the door trying to open the back door to let me out. And thankfully he was able to, but the backdraft threw him onto we had a garage area there, and it threw him onto the vehicle, but I was able to run out of the house. That night, two of my siblings were not in the home. They were with their mother, but there were six children in the house that night. And I remember coming out of the carport garage area, running to the front of the house, not knowing that I had even been burned because as I said, I threw my hands up when I walked through the fire. And whenever I came to the front, I saw one of my siblings, which was one of the twins, and I saw my mother. She was just, screaming to the top of her lungs because she was counting. And her tale was whenever she came out, she just knew that she had all of her children with her as she exited the house. But unfortunately, it was only me and my brother. I had two other siblings. They were trapped in my parents' rooms. And I had two siblings that were in their bedrooms still. So I remember my dad seeing them, the two girls that were in their bedroom trapped. And the only thing that he could think to do was just break the window out with his bare hands. And anyone who knows, like in just the moment, you don't think about how you can injure yourself. You just react. You just act. Anything to save a life or anything to escape or try to get to safety. That's what you do, and that's exactly what he did. And he was able to get them out. He tried going back in for my other two brothers, but by that time the fire had just completely consumed our home. I mean, it just literally in a matter of minutes, our whole entire home was just consumed. And unfortunately, my two siblings did not make it out of their room. Um, I remember across the road because, like I said, we lived in an area where my family was. Everyone was either next door or across the street. So I remember running barefoot. It was freezing cold. I remember running across the road and going and knocking on the door to my aunt. And again, I'm not aware of what happened to me. I guess shock had begun to actually sit in, and I couldn't feel anything. I didn't know that I was injured. I had no idea. And whenever she came to the door and she opened the door and she was like, oh my goodness, what's going on? She flipped her light switch on and she immediately flipped it off. And that gave me an idea, okay, something has happened to me. And my mom, when she saw it, when my aunt flipped the light on, my mom just, oh my God. My aunt, they called the EMS and they came. And the last memories that I have of that night are me actually being put into the back of an ambulance, and the EMS is telling me to try to remain conscious, just stay with me. They were calling my name, trying to keep me awake and alert. And I remember just kind of drifting. I just felt that I was just kind of like drifting away. There was a brief moment. My mom was the only one who was actually able to ride with me in the ambulance, and she held my hand the entire time. I remember making it to our local hospital, and from there, I just completely blacked out. I lost consciousness from that point. Um, I would have to say that for the first 2 weeks, After I sustained my injuries, I was in an induced coma. So that different procedures could be performed. I had so many things going on. I sustained 23% percentage of burn injuries, that to include my lungs, um, my face, third degree burns, my arms, second and third degree burns. And my hair, the fire, it singed my just everything. I had no hair left. And I actually had to have what they call grafting done. So a portion of my thighs is where they took the skin from to transplant to my hands and to my, they took the hair, the skin from my scalp, and that's what they used to transplant to my face. um, I had a tracheotomy, which helped me, to breathe and everything. And as I said, I did sustain injuries to my lungs from the smoke inhalation. I stayed in the Augusta Burn Center where I had to be rehabilitated. Um, I had to learn how to walk and use my limbs all over again. Um, I remember while I was there, I was apparently coming to out of the coma. And I remember my mom and dad standing at the end of the bed, talking amongst each other, saying, okay, how are we going to tell her? How are we going to say this to her? They were trying to figure out how they were going to tell me that my two siblings didn't make it. And I remember coming to, and in that moment, I remember telling them that I already knew. And they were like, what? You already know? And I said, yes, I know that they're gone. Um, I remember the first time that I saw myself. And the nurse, she tried to, prepare me. She told me, she said, you're not gonna look the same. I just want you to know that you're not gonna look the same. And I remember just having just a little bit of confidence. I'm like, well, not look the same. How can I not look the same? Again, me not being fully aware of the extent of my injuries. And I remember her giving me a mirror and allowing me to look at myself for the first time. And I couldn't recognize myself. There was nothing about me that I could identify with. I was completely changed. Um, yes, I was me on the inside, but physically, as a child, looking into a mirror, I couldn't, I was like, who is this person? I always had long hair as a child, and all of my hair was gone. Um, my face, I hadn't healed, so my skin was like pink and white, from the grafting and everything. And I remember looking at my hands, and I had staples. They stapled all the way up to my forearms. I had staples to keep the grafting in place. So it was a just a complete, you know, shock for me as a child, 8 years old. It was so much to take in at that time. I remember, I don't know, ever since the event, I've always had a soft spot for the twin that survived, because my brother in the fire, he lost his twin and we lost our baby brother. Um, and I don't know what it was, but my thought immediately went to him. I have two sisters and I have three brothers who remain with us, but my mind, my heart just went to the one who lost the twin. And I remember telling a nurse, how, as a child in that state, we lost everything. And I remember one of the things that I said to her was, we don't have any shoes. Um, and just something so simple like that. When we were going through, we had lost everything. As a child, the only thing that I could think about was us not having shoes. And I remember the nurse tracing my foot and asking me, well, what size do you think? Because I thought about my brother. My brother doesn't have any shoes. If I don't have any shoes, my brother doesn't have any shoes. And she traced my foot, and I told her, I said, his foot is probably just a little bit bigger than mine. And that's something that I'll never forget, because that nurse, she brought me my first pair of shoes, after we had lost everything. Once I was able to be rehabilitated and show that I could do certain things on my own, that I was mobile and that I was able to get around, I remember leaving the facility, and I stayed in the hospital for a total of 29 days, recovery and everything. And again, I go back to as a child, because I was so young and there were so many things that I was not prepared for whenever I came home. I really thought that, even though when I looked in the mirror that day and I couldn't remember, identify who I was because I was just changed physically, there was still hope there. And I remember, going home and thinking, I'm going to go back to school and I'm going to be able to, just reintegrate myself back into the norm. And that was an actual shock for me as well, because it was not the same. And it was harder than I had anticipated actually being. One of the hardest things that I feel like I've ever had to do. And doing that is what shows me, as I look back and I reflect on my story, it shows me my strength, because it takes a strong person, I'm telling you, um, to you go through this tragedy, that happens in the middle of the night, which is one of the worst times that things can happen. You're so discombobulated, you're awakened out of your sleep, and all you know to do, you have to just hit the floor running to, save your life. And from doing that to, okay, then there's this loss, and it's not just the loss of one person, but I lost two siblings that I was old enough to know that I loved and I had a bond with, and I was used to them being around. So that was an adjustment. And then to, like I say, go back and reintegrate myself into society, I didn't anticipate it being as tough as it was. I believe in my mind, I thought that things would be the same, but when I re-entered the public school system, it wasn't the same. Children, as we know, they're honest. And for me at that age, their honesty, in a sense, was harsh, and it felt rude. Um, and it was hurtful. Um, my people that were my close friends, they looked at me like, okay, what happened? What's wrong with her face? Is she still the same person? Can she function on the same mental capacity that she once did? There were those types of, scornful remarks and things that I just went through on a day-to-day basis. And I remember crying, coming home crying for days. I would just be met with the same thing. And it just seemed like it would never get easier. I didn't realize at the time, but I see it now. I saw it, some time ago, that I suffered depression for a great portion of my young adulthood and my adolescence. I suffered with depression, but I was so functional with it because I went to school every day, even though it was tough, and I had that pre-anticipated anxiety of what I knew I would be met with from day to day. I did it. Um, but it was not easy. And that is why I actually, those thoughts, those experiences are what led me to say that I need to do something. I need to find a way to be a shoulder or lend an ear to someone who may have gone through or is going through some of the same things that I went through when I was that age. and there was nobody around that looked like me, you know? So I couldn't really find someone who could relate with me, who understood the struggle, the day to day, the thoughts that I had internally that I had to keep to myself because I wasn't comfortable enough. It was almost like an embarrassment or a shame if I showed any emotion, that I would come off as weak, or something like that, that I just thought in my mind, but I was not able to share it with anyone. So I definitely felt like at some point I've got to do something. I would like to create a platform, that being S.C.A.R.S Unite Inc, to just join forces with other people who have experienced similar struggles and just different tribulations, that we all can relate to one another and we all can encourage one another. We can all empower one another. That was the true purpose and the passion and the motivation behind me creating S.C.A.R.S Unite Inc. This I call this a journey because every day is still something to be met with, something that I deal with. But I have grown in so many ways. I've gained so much strength. I'm in so much of a better place mentally, emotionally, physically than what I was when I first started. It's definitely something that I don't want to keep this to myself. I want to share it with people. I want to empower people. I want them to show that you can persevere, that even though things come up in your life, it's not the end. You can triumph, you can endure, you can push through. You have the tools, you have what it takes within yourself to get through anything, any type of tragedy, any obstacle. That does not count you out. You can find strength from whatever tragedy that you have may endure in this life. And even though for me, there were so many days when I just felt like I wanted it to be over because it felt just that intense and it felt just that hard. And I felt just that hopeless at moments. But there was something on the inside of me, which is my will, that would not allow me to just stop or to end it, but to push through and to persevere and to be at a place now where I'm comfortable enough to share my story. Might have started out a little shaky because telling my story, it sometimes takes me back to that very moment. But make no mistake about it, it's all strength. It's all perseverance. And I'm so thankful for where I am with it, that I can sit and share this and just be a help or an assistance or a voice for someone else. So I really thank the Empowerment Podium again for the opportunity to just be able to share with you my story. I look forward to the questions or anything that may follow from this interview. So thank you again.
All right, that was awesome, Christy. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. And that truly, I think that it's so admirable that you were able to go from having something so devastating and to grow to where you are today as a thriving adult and a founder of a nonprofit. I'm honestly wishing you the best of luck as you continue to empower other burn survivors through your outstanding work. That's just really awesome.
Thank you.
So now I just want to transition into the Q&A portion. So we have a couple questions. So if you're ready to go, I'm going to just hop right into it.
Okay.
Cool. All right. So one of the quotes on your nonprofit's page says that strength is the outcome of perseverance. Can you talk about this piece of wisdom and how you came to learn this?
Yes. It's something that I feel is a testament to everything that I have ever gone through. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's the key to perseverance, is actually being able to go through something. Anything, any trial, any tribulation, any tragedy, horrific event that you have to actually go through, you have to know that strength is going to be the result of you going through it. You are going to gain strength from that experience. So that is why I that's one of my mantras, as they say, because I know that being able to push through against all odds, it's an experience that renders strength. It gives you, you're going to gain. You may feel as if you're losing, but once you are able to go through, you will see that you've gained, whether it be knowledge or whether it be strength, you gain from your experiences.
Yes. That's a really, really good point. You know, good experience, bad experiences, you gain and you learn. So thank you for sharing that. All right, a couple more. So for a second question, not only are you a burn survivor, but you also had to deal with the tragedy of losing two of your siblings, Keith and Carrie. In the face of all that difficulty, how did you turn things around to where you are today, uniting burn survivors for the purpose of empowerment with your nonprofit organization?
I feel like we all go through things in life, and those experiences, even though we feel like they directly impact us, and they do, but I feel like we go through things to help others. There were a lot of negatives that happened January 15, 1998. And one of the hardest things was losing my siblings. But I know that me going through that me sharing that with someone else, it's going to help them all the more.
Yeah.
So you have to take that negative and turn it into a positive in some way. And that's what I hope to do with my nonprofit organization is we have shared experiences, and through those shared experiences, we can empower others.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's kind of, what I'm trying to do on my side too with the Empowerment Podium. Everyone has these experiences in some way more than others, but at the end of the day, those shared experiences really, create a connection, and that can be really empowering. So totally agree. All right. One more, and then you're off the hook.
Okay.
All right. So you talk a lot about the value of reflection in some of the stuff that you posted. So what's your advice to someone who's interested in starting to lead a more reflective life? Do you have any best practices that you can share?
My advice would be to routinely just get yourself into a habit of self-reflection, whether it be to see how far you are mentally, you know what I mean? Different things that you are able to measure and compare. I feel like life is all about progression. So I feel like for the most part, things are only going to get better. So if you can take the time and at least evaluate yourself and say, well, I was here in 2012, but look at where I am in 2021. You are able to see the growth, and that is so inspirational, and it motivates. I myself personally, I look at photographs. I look at where I started on my journey when I first sustained my injuries. And that in itself it's like the best thing for me, because I can see the progression. I can see where I started from, and I can see where I'm at now. And it gives me just this wonderful feeling, because I know that so much progress has been made. So that's what I would definitely encourage anyone to do if you're wanting to lead a more reflective life.
Nice. Yeah, I think that's awesome. I mean, like you said, it's kind of hard to realize how far you've come without, looking back at where you were. So I love that piece of advice.
Most definitely.
All right, so that's all the questions that we have for today. So I believe that concludes our talk. And another huge thank you to you, Kristy, for joining us today.
Thank you.
And
Thank you for
sharing your
having me.
story. Yeah, please. You really did truly speak so openly about what you've been through and how those experiences have allowed you to refine yourself into a powerful woman today. So I'm truly inspired by you, and I wish you all the best of luck with your nonprofit S.C.A.R.S Unite Inc. You're going to kill it.
Thank you so much again for having me. I really appreciate it.
No problem. All right. And then before everyone goes, I just want to do a couple quick shout outs. If you'd like to share your story, please let me know. Email us at empowermentpodium@gmail.com or message us on our socials. We have an Instagram, a Facebook, and most recently a TikTok account, all of which you can follow by searching at Empowerment Podium. So give us a follow there to stay up to date on when we'll be going live next and to see some replays of our previous stories. And finally, if you like this stream, please like this video and subscribe to this channel. You can also hit the notification bell to receive a notification every time we post a new video or live stream. And I just want to thank you guys all again for tuning in, and we'll see you again soon